Have you ever felt that relentless squeeze? That feeling that there just aren't enough hours in the day.
Hmm.
It's something that seems to get, well, more intense the further we get in our careers. I think particularly for mid-senior professionals, you're juggling demanding work, family life, maybe trying to squeeze in some personal goals too. Does that resonate, that constant sprint?
Oh, absolutely. It's almost a universal lament, isn't it? The feeling of being perpetually short on time.
Well, today we're going to challenge that very idea, that pervasive myth. The core premise we're going to dissect is this. Every single one of us, whatever our commitments, has precisely 168 hours in a week. Full stop.
That's the inescapable number.
Exactly. And the real challenge we're about to discover isn't actually a lack of time, but maybe, just maybe, a lack of clarity and, crucially, intentionality in how we perceive and use those hours. We are incredibly fortunate to have an expert guide with us today, brilliant at synthesizing complex information and connecting dots in, well, quite surprising ways.
It's a pleasure to be here.
No, this idea of having more time than we think. It feels almost counterintuitive for so many people, especially when daily life feels like such a constant sprint. What's your initial take on that widespread feeling?
Well, it is fascinating, isn't it, how our perceptions of time can diverge so dramatically from the reality of how we actually spend it. We tend to operate under this pervasive cultural narrative of perpetual time scarcity, that constant time crunch.
Right.
Yet the evidence, when you actually move beyond those anecdotal feelings and look at the hard data, the
Yeah.
real-world examples, it often tells a remarkably different story. It challenges the very foundation of that common belief.
And that's precisely our mission for this deep dive. We want to extract actionable insights, hopefully transform how you view and use your 168 hours. The goal is to help you shift from just, reacting to demands,
Firefighting, essentially.
to intentionally aligning your time with what truly matters to you, your real priorities, your aspirations, ultimately leading to a life that feels more fulfilling, not just more busy. So let's jump in and unpack this revelation, starting with that unwavering truth. 168 hours.
The great equalizer.
It's a fixed quantity, isn't it? A constant. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do, how much you earn. 168 hours. That's it.
Exactly.
Yet our personal experience of this constant, how stretched or free we feel within it, that varies wildly from person to person, it's quite remarkable how subjective it feels. Almost as if some people genuinely have more time than others.
Indeed. And this is precisely where looking at authoritative data becomes so crucial. It helps debunk some really widespread assumptions about how we use our time. For instance, in the U.S., the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics runs a very robust study called the American Time Use Survey, or ATS.
ATUS, right?
Yes. And that, along with other similar time diary studies conducted over the past 4 decades or so, is really considered the gold standard for sociological time research.
And how do they actually gather that data? It sounds intensive.
It is meticulous. They get thousands of people to report their activities literally minute by minute over 24-hour periods. Sometimes a researcher is even on the phone, actively prompting for accuracy, perhaps gently reminding participants about the actual physics of time if they try to claim they somehow squeezed 28 hours of activity into a single day.
Happens more often than you'd think, I imagine.
Perhaps, but it's a rigorous approach designed to capture reality, not just perception. And the findings, well, they often challenge some deeply ingrained beliefs.
Okay, like what? Give us an example.
Well, take sleep. Time diary studies consistently show that Americans average about 8 hours of sleep per night.
8 hours? Really?
Yes, about 8 hours. And what's particularly striking is that this figure has remained largely unchanged over the past 40 years.
40 years. Despite everything, mobiles, the internet.
Exactly. And this isn't skewed by, say, retirees or students sleeping in. Even married mothers who work full-time with children under 6. A group you'd assume is highly sleep-deprived. They manage an average of 8.31 hours of sleep. Fathers in that situation get 8.06 hours.
That's genuinely surprising.
It is. And even married full-time working mothers with older school-aged children still get a very respectable 8.09 hours. So while individual nights obviously vary, the narrative of widespread chronic sleep deprivation across the working population might not be quite as universal as we often assume from, just talking to people.
Okay, so sleep might be better than we think overall. What else does the data challenge?
Well, then there's the perception around work hours, that cultural narrative of the pervasive 60-hour-plus work week. For the vast majority, it seems to be largely a misconception.
You hear it all the time, though.
You do. But the data suggests that only about 1% of the U.S. workforce actually logs these kinds of hours consistently. And even that estimate, because it's often self-reported rather than meticulously time-logged, might actually be too high. Most people seem to be working significantly less than they perceive, or certainly less than the popular narrative suggests.
Fascinating. And housework. That must have changed.
Oh, dramatically. Time spent on household chores has fallen quite precipitously, almost halved over the past 40 years.
Halved. Wow.
Yes. To give you some concrete figures, back in 1965, stay-at-home mothers spent an astonishing 37.4 hours per week just on cleaning.
37 hours just cleaning.
Just cleaning. Today, married mothers who work full-time spend about 13.5 hours per week on all housework combined. And it's not just mothers. Even dads whose wives don't work full-time are contributing over an hour a day to household tasks now. Standards have clearly changed, and that's had a huge impact on time allocation.
Ray, you mentioned those old magazine tips. Vacuuming ceilings and polishing shoes.
Exactly. Things people simply don't prioritize anymore.
Okay, one more television. How does that fit in?
Television. Self-reported viewing often exceeds the results from time diary studies. Nielsen might report, say, 28 hours per week on average. But the time diaries, which track what people are doing as their primary activity, show something closer to 18-23 hours per week.
So discrepancy there, too. What does that suggest?
It suggests people don't fully track how much time the TV is merely on in the background versus when they are actively engaged, truly watching. It points to a significant chunk of, well, unaccounted for time that could potentially be reevaluated or used differently.
Okay, this is really interesting. So if the data suggests we're largely getting enough sleep, maybe not working quite as much as we perceive, and spending significantly less time on housework than, say, our parents or grandparents did, then why? Why do so many of us still feel perpetually busy and under-rested? There's a real disconnect here between the objective data and our subjective experience.
That is the core problem. And it really boils down to awareness, or rather, a lack thereof. The fundamental issue seems to be that most individuals have, frankly, absolutely no idea how we spend our 168 hours.
We just don't track it.
Precisely. And this unawareness leads to spending massive amounts of time on activities that offer only, perhaps, slight pleasure or feeling of accomplishment, but contribute very little to our careers, our families, or our personal growth.
What kind of activities are we talking about?
Those hours lost to excessive television, aimless web surfing, reactive housework that isn't truly necessary, just tidying things that will get messy again soon, and countless errands that could perhaps be minimized or outsourced.
The busy work.
Exactly. The busy work. And conversely, insufficient time gets allocated to the high-impact activities that really do matter and require more thought or initiative. We're talking about things like properly nurturing our children in meaningful ways, engaging in regular purposeful exercise, or the deliberate practice of our professional crafts, the things that genuinely advance us towards our goals.
So we fill the time with low-value stuff, feel exhausted, and don't do the important things.
That seems to be the pattern. Consequently, we feel overworked and under-rested, and then we tend to believe stories or narratives that confirm this view, creating a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. The transformative paradigm shift, the real opportunity here, lies in approaching time differently. It means starting with a blank slate and viewing every minute as a choice.
Every minute as a choice. That's a powerful reframe. And to really bring this concept to life, you found some truly compelling examples of individuals who seem to embody this intentional time management, people who seemingly defy that time crunch that the data suggests might be partly illusion.
Yes, there are some remarkable stories.
Tell us about Teresa Daitner.
Right, Teresa Daitner. She's a mother of 6 children, including 8-year-old twins at the time this research was done, and she successfully runs a 7-figure construction company, DCG, overseeing projects ranging from $10 million up to $75 million.
Wow. 6 kids in a major construction company.
Yeah, exactly. And despite this immense responsibility, she manages to sleep at least 7 hours a night. She also coaches soccer, she's cheering at her children's games on weekends, and she was happily planning her 21-year-old daughter's wedding, all while her business continued to grow. She even takes days off for family outings, like seeing the cherry blossoms in Washington.
It sounds almost impossible.
It does, which is why, apparently when Barack Obama himself met her, he reportedly asked her, "When do you sleep?" It perfectly captures that disbelief people often have when faced with someone managing such a seemingly packed yet balanced life.
Incredible. And then there's Michael Szydlowski.
Yes, Michael Szydlowski, a software engineer at Google. His schedule is, well, equally astounding. He teaches graduate-level computer science at NYU for 6 hours a week. He trains for Ironman triathlons.
The full Ironman. Swim, bike, run.
The full Monty, 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, 26.2-mile run. He dedicates 15 hours a week just to training for that. He also coaches other athletes for about 3 hours a week.
On top of a Google job.
On top of a solid 40-hour week at Google. He manages to sleep a full 56 hours per week. That's 8 hours a night. And after all that, he still finds he has about 28.5 hours of free time left over each week.
28 hours free after all that.
His key insight, after he tallied it all up: despite everything I do, I still have more free time than I thought I do. He describes feeling pretty free and always having a pretty good day. It really is a testament to the power of intentionality.
Their lives sound, as you said, pretty sweet.
They do. And it's crucial to understand it's not because they possess more hours than anyone else. They don't have the secret time machine. It's because they approach their 168 hours with profound purpose and clarity. They are not simply reacting to demands. They're making deliberate, intentional choices about where their time goes. This isn't about superhuman capability or necessarily extreme privilege. It's about treating each hour as a deliberate choice and aligning it with what truly matters to them.
That idea of strategic investment of time brings us really neatly to our next concept. It's clearly not just about tracking where time goes, important as that is, but what we do with that time, what we choose to focus on. And this leads us to a strategic concept usually reserved for corporate boardrooms, the idea of core competencies. How does that apply to us as individuals?
That's an excellent connection. The concept of core competencies was first really powerfully articulated by management gurus Gary Hamel and C.K. Prelad in a very influential Harvard Business Review article back in 1990.
Right, I think I remember that.
Historically, the corporate model often saw companies as these sort of behemoths of strategic business units, often quite unrelated but hopefully profitable. Think of, U.S. Steel buying Marathon Oil, or a company like GE acquiring investment banks or television networks. The thinking was, if it makes money, a big corporation should probably be involved in it.
Diversification above all else.
In a way, yes. But Ham and Prahad contrasted this with the critical shift they saw coming. They argued that in a more competitive, globalized era, companies would need to focus intensely on what they did best. They realized that top talent is actually a scarcer resource than raw materials or even capital.
Interesting point.
And there's a significant opportunity cost in clarity of strategic intent when energy and resources are devoted to things that others can do just as well, or even better. It dilutes focus and effort. So they defined a core competence for businesses using 3 key criteria.
Okay, what are they?
Firstly, it has to provide potential access to a wide variety of markets. Secondly, it must make a significant contribution to the perceived customer benefits of the end product. And thirdly, crucially, it must be difficult for competitors to imitate, often because it's a complex harmonization of individual technologies and production skills.
Hard to copy.
Exactly. And they noted that few companies truly achieve world leadership in more than, say, 5 or 6 such core competencies. So the conclusion was clear. Modern, successful companies focus relentlessly on these core strengths and consciously minimize, outsource, or simply ignore everything else. It's what Thomas Friedman later sort of encapsulated with the idea that the world is flat. Specialization and focus become absolutely key to competitive advantage.
So how does this powerful business framework, originally designed for giant corporations, genuinely translate to us as individuals? We're not global enterprises, obviously, but we certainly have our own unique skills, our own value proposition, don't we? How can we apply this very strategic thinking to our own lives and our own 168 hours?
That's the critical question, and the translation is remarkably direct and I think very powerful. Individuals, just like companies, absolutely can and should identify their core competencies. The same 3-part definition applies quite well. These are abilities that you can leverage across multiple spheres of your life. They are important and meaningful to you, and crucially, they are things you do best that others cannot do nearly as well.
Okay, can you give us an example of that in practice?
Let's look at a truly remarkable case study. Roald Hoffmann, born in 1937, a Jewish Nobel Prize-winning chemist. He survived the Second World War, hiding in a schoolhouse attic in Poland for over a year.
Incredible survival story.
Absolutely. And during that terrifying period, he became, in his own words, a keen observer, a watcher. He'd recorded the changing light, the seasons. He watched other children playing outside from his hiding place. This intense observational capacity became his foundational core competency.
Shaped by extreme circumstances.
Profoundly. Despite immense pressure later to become a doctor, he pursued chemistry, applying these observational skills to truly groundbreaking work. He co-developed the Woodward-Hoffmann rules, which earned him a share of the 1981 Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Amazing.
But what's perhaps even more fascinating is that after receiving the Nobel Prize, he began writing poetry in earnest. He applied that same core watching ability to poetry, endowing his observations with emotional currency, as he put it. He studies other poets, edits himself rigorously, attends retreats. He acknowledges it's not easy and requires many more drafts than my science articles.
So he leveraged that one core skill across science and art.
Exactly. Hoffman exemplifies knowing what he is good at and what he can do better than almost anyone else, and leveraging this core ability across incredibly diverse fields, from wartime survival to chemistry and poetry.
That's a powerful illustration. Any other examples?
Yes. Consider Elizabeth Cambord. Her journey began as an overweight former smoker working as a nonprofit fundraiser. She initially struggled with exercise, but then discovered she actually loved working out, particularly group fitness classes.
Found her niche.
She did. This passion led her to get certified, and she found she excelled at teaching, at choreographing routines, and, crucially, at creating an accepting environment for different body types. She herself ultimately lost over 70 pounds.
Yeah.
She then made the bold decision to leave her fundraising job and open her own place, Sante Fitness Studio.
Taking the leap.
And she made a very specific strategic point of focusing only on group fitness, encouraging all body shapes, and explicitly avoiding personal training because, quite simply, she hated it and felt it pulled her from other things she was better at and enjoyed more.
Focusing on her strength.
Precisely. She even strategically aligned her volunteer work, things like leading warm-ups for charity walks or hosting community dances to fund school PE programs in ways that also benefited her business. In her family life, she focused on group fitness, like hiking together and nurturing her daughters, while acknowledging what she hated to do, like watching her daughter's softball games, wasn't her thing, and figuring out how to make it go away without neglecting her child. Both Hoffman and Cambord show this profound clarity on what they truly excel at and enjoy, and focusing their energy there.
It strikes me, though, that these aren't always obvious skills or predetermined paths. It really sounds like it takes a process of self-discovery, maybe even quite a bit of experimentation, to uncover these unique competencies. It's not about just fitting yourself into a predefined box, is it?
You've hit on a crucial point there.
Yeah.
Identifying your core competencies is absolutely an ongoing journey. It's not a one-off exercise. You just have to keep trying things, paying attention to your reaction, noticing what makes you, as Elizabeth Cambord put it, almost insatiable to learn more about it.
That sense of deep curiosity.
Exactly. Like a successful modern corporation, individuals typically have no more than, say, half a dozen true core competencies. Ideally, the actual substance of your paid work should be a core competency, something you genuinely excel at and derive energy from doing.
That makes sense.
Nurturing your key relationships, your family members, your close friends. That's arguably a non-negotiable core competency for everyone, as no one else can fulfill that role quite as you can. And importantly, your leisure activities, too, should ideally be based around these core competencies, things you do best, and are willing to devote time and effort to make them truly meaningful and enriching, not just time fillers.
So work, family, leisure, all connected by these core strengths.
Ideally, yes. The sobering experience for many, though, comes when they actually look at their time logs, as we discussed earlier. Those logs often reveal that vast chunks of the 168 hours are spent on activities that are not core competencies, both at work and at home.
Like what specifically?
Things like errands, excessive housework, endless television watching, aimless shopping. These often consume huge amounts of time, yet when people reflect, these activities are rarely classified as particularly meaningful or important. Understanding this disconnect between where time actually goes and what truly matters is the first vital step to reclaiming your 168 hours and focusing on what counts.
That's a powerful insight. And it leads us directly to think about work, doesn't it? So much of our 168 hours are dedicated to our jobs. If that time isn't deeply aligned with our core competencies, it can become a significant drain on our overall energy and satisfaction, can it? It's clearly not just about the hours logged, but the quality and alignment of those hours.
Precisely. Being in the right job, a job that genuinely leverages your core competencies and aligns with your values, can imbue you with amazing energy for the entirety of your 168 hours. It's truly profound, the impact it can have.
More energy overall.
Yes. You'll possess more zeal, more stamina, more enthusiasm for all other aspects of your life, including your family. This might sound counterintuitive, But working, say, 50 hours a week in a job you genuinely love and feel energized by can actually provide you with more positive energy for your children than working just 30 hours in a job you detest and that drains you. The intrinsic motivation transforms your capacity and overall well-being.
This is a really important point. The quality matters more than the quantity.
Absolutely. Consider the renowned marine biologist and explorer in residence at the National Geographic Society, Sylvia Earle. Back in 1998, when she was 62, which is actually the average U.S. retirement age, her voice apparently just brimmed with joy when she discussed her work, while speaking from 60 feet underwater in an underwater base called Aquarius.
62 and working underwater with joy.
Exactly. And fast forward to 2009, when she was 73, she was still embarking on trips to the Yucatan Peninsula and Australia to study whale sharks and reefs, finishing books, collaborating with Google to add oceans to Google Earth, campaigning globally for marine sanctuaries. Just relentless energy.
Still going strong.
She perceives each hour logged doing this work, not as a chore, but as a source of joy, even after accumulating over 7,000 underwater hours throughout her long career. And this passion even spilled into her family life. She often involved her 3 children in things like making slides from seaweed specimens she'd collected. Her work wasn't a drain. It was clearly a wellspring of energy that fueled her entire life.
It's incredible how that passion fuels everything. Now, thinking about our modern career landscape, many people seem to be chasing the idea of the 4-hour work week or simply dream of working less. But does the research truly support this as the ultimate path to fulfillment? Or is there something deeper at play, as Sylvia Earle's life seems to suggest?
It's an excellent question, and it allows us to challenge that popular 4-hour workweek prescription, drawing on some solid sociological research. While an older survey from 2006 by CareerBuilder.com found that 84% of full-time workers said they weren't in their absolute dream jobs.
Which sounds quite high.
It does. But contrast that with the 2002 General Social Survey, GSS, a very respected study, which revealed a rather surprising finding. 89% of adults working more than 10 hours per week reported being either very satisfied or somewhat satisfied with their jobs.
89% satisfied. That's much higher than you'd expect.
It suggests that most people find a workable level of contentment in their employment, even if it's not their ultimate fantasy job. Furthermore, despite the popularity of TV shows portraying a life of pure leisure, that same 2002 GSS also showed that most people would actually continue to work in some fashion even if they didn't financially need to.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the truth seems to be that all play and no work makes Jack as dull a boy as the other way around. There is significant happiness and fulfillment derived from engaging in meaningful professional pursuits. Indeed, research published in 2008 Journal of Career Assessment even suggests that happiness can actually be an important precursor and determinant of career success, not merely a byproduct of it.
So happiness drives success, not just the other way around.
That's what the evidence suggests. The satisfaction isn't just a reward for success. It actively fuels it.
Okay, so if the 4-hour work week isn't the ultimate answer for most, what does define the right job? What are the characteristics we should be looking for based on research?
Research on happiness and creativity points towards 4 key characteristics. Firstly, intrinsic motivation. The right job taps into activities you loved, perhaps as a child, or things you would willingly do for free just because you enjoy them.
Like my writing example.
Exactly, like your childhood desire to write stories, not doodle equations. Or take Elon Crew, an aeronautics professor. As a child, he was fascinated by flight, apparently trying to figure out how to fly without engines. This later led to him inventing the foot-launched sailplane. It's about that deep internal drive.
Makes sense. What's number 2?
Secondly, autonomy. You need to be given a reasonable amount of freedom and control in determining how to carry out your work. Nobody thrives being micromanaged. It's pretty straightforward. Trust and flexibility are key.
Agreed. Number 3.
Thirdly, challenge. The work needs to be optimally challenging. This means it calls upon your best skills and helps you develop new ones, but without being completely overwhelming or beyond your current skill level. This ideal state is what the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi famously termed flow.
Flow state, right?
Yes. He discovered this through a fascinating experiment where thousands of people recorded their activities and feelings via pagers over time. He found people were happiest when they were so completely absorbed in a difficult but doable activity that hours passed by in minutes. This deep absorption is a hallmark of truly engaging work.
And the final characteristic.
And finally, number 4 is organizational support. The work environment itself The organization, your colleagues, needs to actively encourage your best work. This means providing sufficient resources, fostering a genuinely supportive team, ensuring good communication, and cultivating an environment where creativity and contribution are genuinely valued and encouraged. All these elements combined create the fertile ground for a truly right job.
So it's the task itself, the freedom, the challenge, and the environment.
Precisely. And building on this, there's the crucial concept of deliberate practice, popularized by K. Anders Ericsson's research. This is the idea that achieving truly expert performance, whether you're playing the violin or mastering a surgical technique or writing code, requires at least 10,000 hours of focused, intentional practice.
The 10,000-hour rule.
That's the one. It's difficult to push yourself beyond the basic job requirements if you don't fundamentally enjoy or feel engaged by what you do. You'll likely just do what's explicitly required or rewarded and then seek escape. There was even a University of Maryland study that found unhappy people watched about 20% more television than happy ones, suggesting they tend towards escape rather than actively engaging with and solving problems. The right job encourages that engagement and problem solving.
It really sounds like we can't just sit back and wait for the perfect job to land in our laps. It feels much more like something we have to actively build or shape for ourselves. Is that right? What are the practical pathways to cultivating this right job, given the realities of today's economy?
You're absolutely right. It is very much something you actively build or create. Research suggests two primary pathways. The first is creating the right job within an existing organization. This involves finding an organization that is reasonably flexible and open to leveraging your unique talents. And then, as the saying sometimes goes, concocting your dream job within its structure. Often it might be easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. You demonstrate your value in a certain area, prove its worth, and then work to formalize that expanded or reshaped role.
Carving out your space.
Exactly. The second path, which is increasingly common in the modern economy, is self-employment. In New York City, for example, self-employment was actually the biggest single source of job creation between 1981 and 2006, adding nearly 500,000 jobs. By 2009, something like 26% of the entire U.S. workforce identified as free agents.
A quarter of the workforce.
Indeed. Now, while some of these are undoubtedly forced moves due to redundancy or lack of traditional employment, for many, it's a deliberate choice, driven by push factors like frustration with bureaucracy and pull factors like the desire for autonomy and the drive to fully leverage their core competencies.
Can you give us an example of that self-employment path?
Certainly. Let's consider Mark Matsumoto. He was a former finance professional who, after what he described as a forced career change, decided to transform his lifelong love for cooking into a dream job as a food personality, writing, blogging, creating recipes. He now apparently spends his weekdays exploring farmers markets, cooking interesting dishes, and using his business background and marketing skills to attract over 100,000 unique visitors to his website each month. He initially viewed the change as a forced move, but now he wonders why it didn't do it sooner. His passion became his profession, offering that crucial autonomy and alignment.
Found his calling through adversity.
In a way, yes. Then there are Julie Pickens and Mindy Doney, the creators of Boogie Wipes, those saline-infused tissues for kids.
Oh, yes, I know those.
Right. Two mothers who, apparently between other business ventures, had an epiphany while dealing with their snotty children. Why not put saline in the wipe? They launched their company, Little Busybodies, Inc., in 2007. Now, they probably didn't dream of tissues as children, but running their own business gave them that incredible autonomy and challenge we talked about. They hashed out product details during playdates. One worked flexible hours from an office with a playroom. The other worked from home with an infant. They gave their dozen employees similar flexibility. They found themselves energized by the challenge of problems like figuring out how to get their product into major retailers like Walmart. And that drive led to over $5 million in sales in less than 2 years.
Wow, so the passion came from the process, the autonomy.
It seems so. Their journey shows that the passion for the work itself, the problem solving, the building something, can sometimes be developed through the autonomy and challenge of entrepreneurship, rather than necessarily being a pre-existing love of the specific product or service.
It's inspiring to see how these individuals really created their own versions of the right job. Ultimately, though, how do we gauge if we're on the right trajectory in our own careers? If we're genuinely heading toward a right job rather than just settling for a job? Is there a kind of litmus test we can use for ourselves?
There is a rather insightful, if hypothetical, test you can apply. Ask yourself this. Would you take $400 million to walk away?
400 million pounds.
Yes. If someone offered you $400 million to walk away from your current job and never do the stuff of it again, never engage in the core activities that define it, you have to stop and think about it. Would you feel a genuine sense of grieving, a loss, despite the immense riches being offered?
That's a tough question.
If the answer involves hesitation, if you'd feel that sense of loss for the work itself, it strongly suggests you're on the right track. It implies you found work that holds intrinsic value for you, something beyond mere remuneration. It's about whether the work itself holds a deep meaning that even vast wealth couldn't easily replace.
That's a fantastic thought experiment. It really shifts the focus beyond just compensation and onto the intrinsic value, the meaning of the work itself. Now, even if we're fortunate enough to be in or building towards the right job, our calendars can still get clogged up with activities that aren't truly real work, things that look busy but aren't genuinely productive. How do we cut through that noise and identify what truly moves the needle for us, professionally speaking?
This is such a critical distinction, isn't it?
Yeah.
We absolutely must differentiate between things that look like work and actual work. And by actual work, I mean activities that are advancing you toward the purpose of your existence, or at least towards your key professional goals.
So separating activity from impact.
Precisely. So many common workplace activities, think of long, aimless meetings where you're not essential, or obsessively checking and responding to every single email instantly, can give a false sense of productivity. They make you feel busy, but ultimately they waste time, and frankly, they waste lives. Consider someone like Bill Gates. He reportedly attends meetings only when he plays a critical part, and others plan rigorously beforehand to avoid wasting his time. There's no inherent nobility in just sitting in an endless meeting if you're not contributing or gaining anything vital.
It's like that example you used of the police officer.
Yes, the officer running herself ragged, responding to 300 individual 911 calls on a single problematic street corner, versus taking the time to figure out and actually solve the root cause of the problem there. One is constant activity, the other is strategic impact.
Makes sense. Can you illustrate this focus on real work with another example?
Certainly. Let's look at Carol Fassbinder-Orth. She's a rising young scientist and professor at Creighton University, and also a mother of 2 young children. Her upbringing was quite unusual. She grew up on an apiary, a bee farm, where she experienced countless bee stings.
Ouch.
Indeed. But this apparently developed in her a certain unflappability, a calmness under pressure that gave her a refreshingly pragmatic perspective on academic work. She fundamentally understands that academic scientists are ultimately judged on the quality of their results and their publications in significant journals, not merely on the number of hours they spend physically present in the lab or the number of committees they sit on.
Focusing on the outcome, not just the process.
Exactly. So her strategy is to focus intensely on the metrics that truly matter for achieving tenure in her field. Typically, something like 3 to 5 high-impact publications in major journals, securing significant external grant funding, and maintaining reasonable teaching and advising loads. She consciously minimizes time spent on activities she deems a waste of time, such as pursuing experiments that show limited promise of success or getting bogged down in internal academic politics. She's known to apparently politely extract herself from meetings if they become irrelevant to her core research goals.
It takes courage to do that.
It does. She typically works a focused 8 or 9 hour day, prioritizes being home for time with her kids in the evening, and then might do more focused work, like writing or planning experiments, after they're in bed. She plans her experiments carefully to avoid frequent unnecessary late-night visits to the lab. And her unflappability extends to handling unexpected crises. There's a story of her getting trapped in an elevator with her young children at the lab late one Friday evening, a situation she apparently took completely in stride. She exemplifies focusing her energy on what truly matters for her professional advancement and filtering out the noise.
Unflappability, I like that. So if identifying the real work, the stuff that truly matters, like Carol did, is the first crucial step, how do we then systematically eliminate or at least significantly reduce all the other stuff, the noise? You've discussed a powerful 3-part strategy for tackling this non-core competency work. Can you walk us through it?
Yes, it's a comprehensive 3-part strategy, and the elements are quite straightforward. Ignore it, minimize it, or outsource it.
Ignore, minimize, outsource. Okay, let's start with ignore it.
Right. Ignore et iterana. It is the most direct approach. It means actively quitting projects, giving up responsibilities that are just leeching time without significant return, or simply declining to take them on in the first place. Now, this can feel frankly, scary as hell for many people, whether you're employed or self-employed. People worry about burning bridges, damaging relationships, or seeing their income plummet.
There are real risks involved.
There can be. You shared a personal example yourself, didn't you? About deciding to stop writing that regular section for Reader's Digest.
Yes, that's right. As a new mom and freelance writer, I stopped writing the non-bylined Only in America section. It provided over half my income at the time and was flexible, only about 20 hours a week. But I found it took up too much mental energy I wanted to put towards my bigger goal of writing books and longer, more serious articles. My income did drop by half initially, which was stressful, but it eventually recovered from higher value projects. And, well, as it turned out, the Reader's Digest Association later filed for bankruptcy, so it was probably a wise move long-term anyway.
A perfect example. This tactic often relies on negotiating from a position of strength, ideally, by being exceptionally good at your core work, making you valuable, or perhaps by having a financial cushion or other job offers waiting. As the saying goes, people perform better when they don't desperately need their jobs, as it fosters a willingness to take calculated risks and push back against non-essential tasks that don't serve their primary goals.
Okay, so ignoring it is about strategic quitting or declining. What about the second part? Minimize it.
Minimize. It involves setting a reasonable limit on your total work hours,
Mhm.
perhaps aiming for somewhere between 30 and 50 hours a week, or 60 at the absolute maximum for sustainable high performance. Then, the key is to commit to filling large portions of that limited time with genuinely high-value work. This means actually blocking off time in your calendar for strategic thinking or deep work on key projects and treating those blocks as absolutely unavailable to others, just like an important client meeting.
Protecting your focus time.
Precisely. A great example here is Trista Harris, who we mentioned earlier, the executive director of the Headwaters Foundation for Justice. She implemented regular, short, one-on-one meetings with each of her direct reports, always with clear agendas set in advance. This proactive approach allowed her staff to hold their big, pressing questions for these designated times, which significantly minimized random interruptions throughout the week. Think about it. 2 15-minute focus meetings per week per report might only amount to less than 4 hours total, but the impact on everyone's ability to concentrate during the rest of the week could be huge.
That sounds very efficient.
It is. Her organization also transitioned to what's called a results-only work environment, or ROE. This allows employees to work wherever and whenever they choose, as long as the required work gets done effectively. This inherently minimizes wasted time that can come from rigid schedules or unclear directives. Harris herself blocks off chunks of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings specifically for strategic thinking time. She closes her door, avoids email, and focuses purely on high-level issues like fundraising strategies or emerging philanthropic trends. And to manage the influx of mentoring requests she received, she created a helpful handout with resources for young women and people of color interested in philanthropy. She asked potential mentees to review it first and then send specific questions beforehand, ensuring those high-value interactions remain focused and productive. It's all about structuring time to minimize waste.
Really smart ways to manage interactions and focus. Okay, and the third strategy, outsource it.
Yes, outsource it. This is about delegating tasks that don't require your specific expertise or attention to others, perhaps dedicated assistants, shared administrative support, or external freelancers and services. This is where the classic economic law of comparative advantage comes into play. Even if you could technically do a task slightly better or faster than someone else, if your time is more valuable spent on your core competencies, it still makes economic sense to delegate the less critical task. You free up your most valuable resource, your focused attention for the activities where only you can deliver the highest value.
It's about opportunity cost again.
Exactly. Continuing with Trista Harris as an example, beyond managing her internal staff effectively, she actively outsourced tasks. She hired someone through the online platform Elance to design her New Voices of Philanthropy blog. She used a virtual assistant for specific research projects. And interestingly, when she's invited to speak at conferences or panels where she feels she isn't perhaps the most appropriate or knowledgeable speaker, she proactively suggests other talented individuals from her broad professional network. This builds goodwill, helps others, and frees up her own time for engagements where her unique expertise is truly essential.
That's a clever way to handle requests.
And she applies these lessons at home, too. There's a story about when her 10-year-old daughter forgot her homework. Instead of automatically dropping everything and driving 45 minutes back to school to retrieve it, Harris leveraged her core competency as a mother. which includes teaching responsibility to counsel her daughter on how to approach the teacher, explain the situation, and figure out how to solve the problem herself. She taught a life lesson rather than just playing fetch. It's about applying the principle of leveraging the right skills for the right tasks, regardless of who performs them, across all domains of life.
So what really stands out across ignore, minimize, and outsource is this overarching principle of intentionality. It requires a really ruthless focus on what truly moves the needle for you, professionally speaking. It's fundamentally about working smarter, not just longer hours, and actively reclaiming agency over how your professional time is spent.
Absolutely. And perhaps one final crucial point on optimizing professional life. Boosting your efficiency in the long run also means actively getting better at your core professional craft. This isn't just about passively putting in the hours. It's about engaging in that focused, deliberate practice we mentioned earlier. It means actively studying the work of others you admire, critically analyzing your own work to identify weak spots, proactively seeking constructive feedback, and continually laboring to refine your skills. For instance, you've mentioned that after years of dedicated writing practice, if you're assigned the 1,000-word piece now, your first draft consistently comes out somewhere between 900 and 1,100 words.
Yes, usually pretty close now.
That reflects an efficiency and precision gained through years of intentional practice. It's a true mastery of your professional craft that not only improves quality, but also frees up valuable time and mental energy for other pursuits. Continuous improvement is part of working smarter.
That's a great point. Okay, so once we've started streamlining our professional hours using these strategies, the next significant area of time investment and often perceived time drain is our home lives. Many of us, especially those mid-career professionals we mentioned, feel that the domestic burden is precisely where the time crunch truly bites hard. How has this changed historically, and more importantly, what can we do about it now?
It's true. That feeling of the domestic burden is very real for many people. But the fascinating reality is that home economics, in the broadest sense, have undergone drastic changes over the past few decades. The single most significant shift is that the amount of time devoted purely to housework has fallen precipitously almost in half over 40 years.
Halved again, just like work hours perception.
Indeed. One major factor, of course, is simply smaller family sizes. You mentioned Mrs. Meyer earlier, the person whose family inspired the well-known cleaning product brand. Apparently, she had 9 children back in 1965. Her daughter, Monica Nassif, who later founded the actual Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day brand, has 2. Fewer children naturally require less time for basic upkeep like laundry, dishes, general tidying.
Simple maths, really.
It is. However, another absolutely crucial reason for this decline is the significant lowering of general housekeeping standards. Women today, and men for that matter, simply don't do many of the things women did 40 years ago. Think about it. Those old Good Housekeeping magazines contain detailed instructions for things like cutting raisins precisely with kitchen shears, meticulously polishing children's footwear daily, ironing electric blankets, or even routinely vacuuming walls and ceilings.
Vacuuming the ceiling, seriously.
Apparently so. While labor-saving devices like dishwashers and self-cleaning ovens certainly existed back in the 1950s and 60s, women still spent excessive hours on chores. This strongly suggests that the perceived necessity of certain tasks has changed much more significantly than just the availability of tools. Even today, a fair portion of the time spent by stay-at-home mothers on housework, which averages around 26 hours per week, might not be strictly necessary by today's standards, but everyone benefits from these generally lowered societal expectations of what constitutes a clean enough home.
So it sounds like the argument isn't necessarily to neglect our homes or our families, far from it, but rather to apply that core competency principle here too. To focus our precious home time on what truly nurtures relationships and connection, rather than on chores that are often low impact, could potentially be done by someone else, or maybe even eliminated entirely.
Exactly. For most individuals, meticulous housework is not one of these core competencies. Let's be honest. Someone else can often do these tasks better, or at least enjoys them more, or perhaps just does them more efficiently because of their profession. The crucial point to grasp here is the immense opportunity cost involved in doing routine household chores yourself, especially if you don't enjoy them.
Time spent scrubbing is time not spent elsewhere.
Precisely. Time spent on tedious housework is time taken away from potentially much higher value activities. Genuinely nurturing your children, truly connecting with your spouse or partner, pursuing personal passions that recharge you, or even just resting properly. Therefore, making a monetary investment in outsourcing household tasks isn't merely an expense. It should be viewed as a strategic purchase of valuable, non-renewable personal time.
Buying back your weekend.
As that cleaning service aptly put it to a client, you're not buying a clean home, you're buying your weekend back. It really reinforces the underlying philosophy that money, like time, is a choice, and often a related choice. It's interesting the fact that lawn care is one of the most highly outsourced household chores in the U.S. Apparently, 30% of households hire services suggest that men, perhaps traditionally responsible for that domain, have intuitively grasped this concept of buying back time for quite a while.
That's a provocative thought. Okay, so let's get practical. What are some comprehensive, concrete outsourcing strategies for various household tasks that tend to eat up our time?
All right, let's break it down. First, consider food chores. This is a really significant time sink for many families. Data shows married dual-income parents, for example, spend a combined average of 9.24 hours per week just on grocery shopping, food preparation, and the subsequent cleanup.
Over 9 hours. That's more than a full workday.
It is. And compare that to the average time they spend actively playing with their children, which is only about 3 hours per week. Even stay-at-home mothers spend over 3 times as many minutes on food chores as they do on playing with their kids. This is clearly a major area where time could potentially be reallocated towards more meaningful connection.
So what are the solutions here?
Well, Sid Savara, the software developer in Honolulu we mentioned earlier, provides a good illustration. He was trying to avoid unhealthy takeout food, but found himself spending as much as 15 hours per week on all the related food tasks, shopping, defrosting, cooking, washing dishes, despite actively disliking it. His solution: he hired a personal chef via Craigslist for just $60 per week, plus the cost of groceries. The chef prepares 15 basic, healthy meals for him. This arrangement saves him an estimated 10 hours per week and has the added bonus of reducing impulsive grocery spending.
A personal chef sounds quite luxurious, though.
It can sound that way, but compared to the cost of frequent takeaways or wasted groceries and valuing his time, it made sense for him. There are also commercial meal delivery services, companies like Jenny Craig, perhaps Zone Chefs or New Kitchen, that can deliver pre-prepared meals in bulk. Wendy Kagan and Michael Belfiore, another couple mentioned in the research, use a vegan meal delivery service after their daughter was born because, as they put it, cooking was at the bottom of the totem pole at that point.
Practical survival mode.
Exactly. But for most families, perhaps the most accessible and genius time saver is strategic online grocery shopping. It allows you to do your shopping late at night, after the kids are asleep, or during otherwise wasted time, like a commute if you're not driving. It completely eliminates travel time and those tedious checkout queues.
The checkout queue alone.
Right. Critically, online platforms allow you to quickly refill your basket from previous shopping lists, which automates buying your regular staples. And they offer a huge plethora of ready-made foods, things like pre-marinated meats, pre-chopped vegetable mixes, decent quality frozen meals. You've mentioned yourself being able to make genuinely good, healthy, home-cooked meals in about 15 minutes using these kinds of shortcuts.
Yes, absolutely. Things like a pre-marinated pork tenderloin with a quick-cook mushroom risotto, or salmon fillets with a simple soy maple glaze served with pre-washed salad and microwavable rice. Minimal active cooking time, only a couple of pots. It's about leveraging that convenience intelligently.
Precisely. And briefly on dining out, while Americans spend about half their food budget in restaurants, often it's on fairly mediocre convenient food rather than a special experience. The suggestion here is perhaps make those simple 15-minute meals at home most nights and save your money and anticipation for a real dinner, out maybe with a babysitter once a week or every couple of weeks. Make dining out an intentional treat, not just a default for exhaustion.
Makes sense. Okay, food chores covered. What about the bane of many households? Laundry.
Laundry and wardrobe maintenance. Sid Savara, again, provides an anecdote. He found his tiny apartment washing machine simply couldn't handle his king-size duvet. It apparently sat dirty for 4 months because the hassle of taking it to a laundrette felt too great. His solution was outsourcing all his laundry for about $7 per load, receiving everything back clean, fresh, and folded within 48 hours.
4 months for duvet. Outsourcing sounds like a win there.
For him, it was. Sarah Wagner, another working mother mentioned, also outsources laundry. Her reasoning is simple and powerful. I don't want to spend less time with my children. I want to spend less time doing housework. She rightly notes that families rarely wax nostalgic about memories of sorting piles of laundry together. For those with a higher budget, services like personal shoppers or stylists, such as Lindsay Weiner, who helps clients find clothes and build wardrobes, can save countless hours of shopping time and reduce decision fatigue around getting dressed.
Okay, laundry. What about general housekeeping? The cleaning?
Housekeeping. Professional cleaning services, like Merry Maids or The Maids, can offer regular weekly or perhaps bi-weekly cleaning. The cost might be around £100 per visit, maybe totaling about £2,500 annually for bi-weekly service. Now that sounds like a lot, but compared to other common discretionary spending, average UK mobile phone bills might be around $876 a year, cable or satellite TV perhaps $852 now. Viewed as an investment in reclaiming your entire weekend every other week, the cost-benefit analysis might look quite different.
Framing it as buying back time again.
Exactly. But even without hiring a cleaning service, a key shortcut is simply decluttering. An uncluttered house inherently looks cleaner with much less effort. The absolute key is maintaining clear, horizontal surfaces, kitchen counters, dining tables, desks. Marie Kondo built an empire on this principle. There's even a fun technique called the 27 Fling Boogie. You set a timer and race to find 27 items to throw out or donate in a short burst. Making it a game can help. And for those who genuinely struggle with chronic disorganization, hiring a professional organizer is now a recognized profession. Your own experience, I believe, with organizer Janine Sarna-Jones revealed that sometimes the issue isn't true disorganization, but perhaps just laziness, or maybe overwhelm a willingness to tolerate clutter because the activation energy required to deal with it feels too high.
Yes, that was quite insightful. Bags of outgrown baby clothes sitting there for months. It wasn't that I didn't know where they should go, I just couldn't face doing it.
A very common feeling. Finally, under home tasks, we have what the research calls the little things that kill you, essentially all those miscellaneous errands and administrative tasks.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Precisely. It's the mental overhead of managing all those random, infrequent, but often surprisingly time-consuming tasks. Scheduling the plumber, returning library books, booking MOTs or dentist appointments, dealing with insurance renewals. Ed Daly, a man who cleverly branded his errand-running business The Perfect Wife, essentially turned a period of career transition into a thriving business managing exactly these kinds of household details for busy clients, charging around $35 an hour. His core competency, he says, is problem-solving, making his clients' lives feel more seamless. Outsourcing these small, often underestimated tasks can free up significant mental bandwidth as well as time.
It really all points back to that core message, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For home life, it's not about abdicating responsibility, but about consciously reallocating your precious time and energy towards the things that only you can do, nurturing relationships, creating memories, and the things that bring true joy and connection within your home and family. It's a strategic investment in your overall well-being and happiness.
Precisely put, it's about consciously building your home team. Whether that team includes paid services, other family members sharing the load more effectively, or simply implementing intentional systems and routines, all designed to support your core competencies and priorities in your personal life. It frees you up to truly focus on the relationships and activities that nourish you, rather than getting constantly bogged down by low-value, high-effort chores that drain your energy.
So once we've started streamlining our professional hours and re-engineering our home lives, the next big question naturally turns to our personal time, our leisure. How do we ensure that this precious time isn't just the leftover bits or filled by default with passive consumption, but becomes truly rejuvenating and fulfilling? It's got to be about more than just escaping the daily grind, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The quality of our leisure time is profoundly important, yet often neglected. And again, the perception versus reality of leisure time is quite distorted. Self-reported surveys often indicate very little actual leisure time, maybe 16.5 hours per week on average for Americans, for instance.
Sounds about right for many people.
It does. However, those rigorous time diary studies we discussed earlier paint a very different picture. They consistently show significantly more leisure time than people perceive, but with a huge portion of it, often 20 to 30 hours per week, recorded as the primary activity dedicated simply to television watching.
20 to 30 hours a week watching TV.
As the main thing they're doing, yes. And TV tends to dominate leisure time for understandable reasons. It's relatively cheap, it makes very few demands on the viewer, and it fits incredibly easily into any unplanned gaps in the schedule. The default state for many, perhaps without even realizing it, is to become world-class couch potatoes.
A rather blunt assessment.
Perhaps, but the data is stark. Critically, research consistently shows that these kinds of low-engagement, low-pleasure activities, like excessive TV watching, often crowd out potentially much higher pleasure, more restorative activities such as actively socializing with friends, engaging meaningfully with art or music, getting physical exercise, or losing yourself in a good book. That's the real danger, having free time that doesn't actually recreate or revitalize you in any meaningful way.
That's such a crucial point. If we're not mindful and proactive about how we spend our leisure time, these precious hours can simply disappear into activities that don't genuinely recharge us, leaving us feeling strangely unfulfilled even when we technically have free time. So how do we make our leisure time truly purposeful and restorative?
The key really lies in structuring our leisure time with the same kind of intentionality we're advocating for work and home life. It means choosing purposeful leisure. We can focus on three key areas. Firstly, and this is non-negotiable, the one rule is that exercise is non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Strong words.
I believe it's that important. Think of regular physical activity as a critical, non-outsourceable core competency for maintaining your health, energy, and overall well-being. The official guidelines, for instance, from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in the U.S. recommend a minimum of 150 minutes. That's just 2.5 hours of moderate activity per week. When you think about it, 2.5 hours out of the full 168 really isn't that much time at all.
Puts in perspective.
It does. Triathlon coach Gordo Byrne puts it succinctly. Doing 3 to 5 hours of exercise a week consistently will massively change your health. Byrne himself is an example. He apparently transformed from a rather out-of-shape finance professional into an Ironman Canada finisher, demonstrating what consistent, focused effort can achieve over time.
And you mentioned Paula Radcliffe inspiring your own running.
Yes, seeing photographs of the renowned marathon runner Paula Radcliffe continuing to run while 6 and even 8 months pregnant was hugely inspiring. It motivated me to keep running through both of my pregnancies, and I personally felt significant benefits for the baby's health, according to my doctor, and even, counterintuitively, increased speed afterwards due to what felt like training with a stowaway. It highlights that exercise really can be integrated even during demanding life phases. The key recommendation is simply to choose a physical activity you genuinely enjoy, because research shows those who enjoy the process the most tend to achieve the best and most consistent results. Running is popular partly because it offers quick fitness results with minimal equipment, and also because the physical impact means a normal person can realistically only run for about an hour a day, maximum, making it quite an efficient use of exercise time.
Okay, so exercise is rule number one. What's the second area for purposeful leisure?
Secondly, pursue passions and hobbies. Beyond essential exercise, identify and actively commit to a small number of other activities, maybe just 1, 2, or at the very most, 3 that truly matter to you personally. These should be things you feel passionate about, things that are worth a significant investment of your energy to genuinely get better and get somewhere with them. If you have young children, sticking to just 1 or 2 is probably more realistic. But the key is that intentional engagement, aiming for progress or mastery, not just dabbling.
Can you give an example of this? Consider Justin Hahnemann, a Coca-Cola executive. Despite a demanding job and presumably a packed schedule, he found his essential creative outlet in country music. He started taking lessons, began writing his own melodies during commutes, work breaks, and weekends, becoming, in his words, a bit obsessed. He didn't just strum casually, he intentionally honed his craft, listening critically to popular country songs to understand their structure, working on refining his vocal technique. He then took it a step further, hiring a professional producer in Nashville to record his own album, Saturday in the South, which apparently even received some local airplay. He found that pursuing this hobby actively changed the way that I operate at work, providing a crucial creative component that energized his entire life, not just his weekends.
Country music from a Coke exec. Fascinating. Okay, exercise,
Yeah.
passions. What's the third key area?
Thirdly, and perhaps most vital for overall well-being, nurture friendships through alignment. The importance of strong social connections, of friendships for our physical and mental health is profound. Research consistently shows significant benefits from better survival rates for women undergoing treatment for breast cancer, to slower rates of brain deterioration in old age, even down to catching fewer common colds.
Friends are good medicine.
Literally, there's a famous Hill experiment conducted at the University of Virginia that visually demonstrates this. Students were asked to estimate the steepness of a hill. They consistently perceived the hill as less steep when they were standing next to a friend compared to when they were alone, and the effect was even stronger if it was a long-term close friend. Friendships literally seem to lighten our perceived burdens.
That's amazing. But there's a paradox, isn't there?
There is. Full, busy lives are often stressful. Friends help alleviate that stress. Yet finding the time to actually connect with those friends amidst our busy lives can also feel stressful. It's a real catch-22 for many people.
So what's the solution?
The suggested solution is a concept called alignment. This is really a special form of multitasking, but one that works. It involves consciously combining activities that utilize different parts of your brain or body simultaneously, or pairing a desired activity, like socializing, with something you have to do anyway. This avoids the cognitive overload and reduced performance associated with traditional multitasking, like trying to write an email while on a conference call.
Okay, give me some examples of alignment for friendships.
Simple things, really. Sharing a meal together is a classic you have to eat anyway. Going for a run or a bike ride with a friend combines exercise and socializing. Turning necessary trips to the playground with your kids into planned play dates with other parents whose company you actually enjoy. Maybe volunteering together on a charity board or project with a friend or family member. Even just making those important phone calls to catch up with friends while you're doing mindless chores like washing dishes or folding laundry. It's about consciously weaving social connection into the existing fabric of your week rather than seeing it as yet another separate thing to schedule.
That makes a lot of sense, piggybacking connection onto existing activities. So, given all the demands on our time, work, home, exercise, passions, friendships, how do we practically carve out space for these vital leisure activities without feeling like we're just adding more items to an already overflowing to-do list? It sounds like it requires some strategic planning, which ironically can feel like more work in itself.
It absolutely does require planning, but think of it as high-leverage planning that ultimately creates more fulfilling time rather than just more tasks. The most effective approach seems to be block scheduling for leisure. Essentially, you advocate treating your meaningful leisure activities with the same seriousness you'd treat an important client meeting or a doctor's appointment. You plan them in advance, you schedule them for specific blocks of time in your calendar, and you prepare for them mentally so you can be fully present.
Scheduling fun, doesn't that kill the spontaneity?
It might seem that way initially, but the alternative for many busy people is that the fun simply never happens because unstructured time gets swallowed by urgent demands or inertia. Scheduling ensures it gets prioritized. Consider using specific time slots. Morning blocks can be excellent. Waking up just a bit earlier, for example. Michelle Gier-Sol, a marketing consultant mentioned in the research, wakes at 5 a.m. 6 days a week for an hour-long walk on the beach or quiet reading time. She shifted that time from aimless late-night TV watching. Morning often provides more energy and, crucially, fewer potential distractions.
Before the day's chaos begins.
Exactly. For those working in an office environment, lunchtime blocks can be an ideal time for exercise. Even just eating lunch quickly at your desk 2 or 3 days a week can free up a significant chunk of time to hit the gym, go for a run, or take a walk when others might be queuing in the cafeteria.
Using that midday lull productively.
Yes. In the evenings, particularly for families with 2 parents, implementing a weeknight off system can be very effective. Each parent gets one designated evening per week, completely free for their own pursuits, hobbies, seeing friends, exercise class, while the other parent takes sole charge of the children and household duties for that evening. This requires clear communication and mutual commitment to avoid scorekeeping or resentment, but it guarantees dedicated personal time for both partners.
That sounds like a fair system.
And finally, weekend planning. Don't let your precious weekends just disappear into a haze of errands and chores. Spend just a few minutes sometime on Friday evening or Saturday morning to intentionally plan 1 or 2 key activities that you want to do, things that might require longer blocks of time than are available during the week. Aim for a healthy balance between some structured family activities or personal pursuits, and also ensuring there's some genuinely unstructured downtime for relaxation and spontaneity too. The goal is simply to make those weekend hours count towards your fulfillment, rather than letting them slip away by default.
Ultimately, then, what you're suggesting isn't about packing every single minute or creating some kind of rigid, joyless schedule. It's really about being mindful and intentional about how we use our non-work time. It's about ensuring our leisure time truly serves its fundamental purpose of recreation and rejuvenation, which in turn makes our entire 168 hours feel fuller, more balanced, and more purposeful.
Precisely. Intentionality is the thread that runs through it all.
We've covered so much ground today. We've journeyed through the surprising truth about our 168 hours, exploring how the perception often differs from reality. We've looked at how to unearth and leverage our unique core competencies, applying business strategy to our personal lives. We've discussed redefining and refining our professional lives to find or create the right job. And we've delved into strategically re-engineering our home and leisure time for greater fulfillment. It's certainly a lot to consider, but it all seems to point towards a really profound shift in mindset, doesn't it? A shift away from a feeling of scarcity toward the sense of possibility and agency.
It truly does. And if we were to boil it down, the key actionable principles for anyone wanting to embark on their own personal time transformation really come down to these essential steps. Firstly, and most fundamentally, recognize you have a choice. Internalize that basic understanding that every minute presents a choice. It's not an inevitable obligation thrust upon you. You need to embrace this agency over your time. Secondly, you absolutely must know where your time goes. You can't change what you don't measure. Start by keeping an accurate, honest time log for at least one full week, 168 consecutive hours. It can be, as one person who did it described it, a mortifying experience initially.
I can imagine confronting reality.
Exactly. But it's an absolutely essential, often incredibly enlightening first step to simply understand your current reality. Where does the time actually go? Thirdly, try to define your list of 100 dreams. This is an exercise in articulating what you truly want out of your life, both personally and professionally. Think big, think small. These dreams become your guiding stars, your personal North Star, helping you decide where you want to intentionally direct your time and energy. Fourthly, as we discussed at length, focus on your core competencies. Actively identify what you do best, what energizes you, and what only you can do effectively. These are the activities that bring you energy, meaning, and will likely have the maximum positive impact. This is where your primary investment of time should yield the greatest return. Fifthly, and this is the active pruning part, ignore, minimize, or outsource everything else. Systematically work to remove or significantly reduce all those activities that are not core competencies or that simply do not align with your defined dreams and priorities. Common culprits that consume vast, often unnoticed, swaths of time include excessive television, unproductive housework beyond basic maintenance, random errands that could be batched or delegated, obsessive email checking, aimless puttering around the house like browsing catalogs with no intention to purchase, and even overly long personal care routines. Start with tackling these easy wins first. For example, if you realize you spend much time mindlessly scrolling social media, simply becoming aware of the pattern can help. One writer mentioned cutting her 5+ daily Facebook and Twitter breaks down significantly just by noticing the time drain. And finally, number 6, actively look for ways to fill bits of time with bits of joy. Make less of small activities that genuinely make you happy, feel meaningful, or move you slightly towards one of your goals, and that take 30 minutes or less, or perhaps even less than 10 minutes. These are things you can slot into those inevitable small gaps in the day. For instance, Catherine Murphy, a lawyer we'll mention shortly, decided to use her commute time to meditate on gratitude. Another individual redirected a habitual 15-minute Facebook break towards spending that time on a French language learning website instead. It demonstrates how small, consistent efforts, applied intelligently to those little pockets of time, can add up to significant progress or increased well-being over the long run.
These principles sound incredibly practical and empowering when laid out like that. And you've mentioned they've been put into practice by real people with real tangible results. Can you share some examples of these time makeovers?
Yes, the research included several case studies of individuals who tracked their time and then worked on implementing these kinds of strategies. For example, Catherine Murphy. She was a first-year legal associate and also a new mom. She initially described feeling incredibly frustrated and in tears from a perceived total lack of time.
A very relatable feeling for many new parents in demanding jobs.
Absolutely. Her initial time log revealed a very busy life, as expected. Around 46 work hours, nearly 9 hours sleep per night on average, which is good, 7 hours of exercise. But surprisingly, only about 4.5 hours per week spent in primary childcare activity, although obviously much more time was spent around her daughter.
So the focused interaction time was quite low.
It seemed so. Some suggestions made for her included deliberately not fixing a broken television, which naturally led to more reading and exercise time. Intentionally carving out some early morning mommy and me time before the workday rush, like getting up at 6:15 a.m. to have nearly 2 focused hours with her daughter before heading to the office and exploring online grocery shopping to save time. The results. She reported successfully starting to cook proper home dinners twice a week, feeling she was prioritizing quality mother-daughter time better by being more present during the day, which included adopting that commute meditation practice, and generally feeling less frantic. It was about intentional presence and small strategic shifts, not finding huge extra blocks of time.
Being present, that seems key. Another example.
Then there's Brian Brandt. He was an executive pastor, also a coach, and a father of 3 children. He felt his demanding schedule left very little time for personal prayer and reflection and for nurturing his marriage. Suggestions for Brian included making a conscious effort to focus during time with his wife, specifically turning off the TV and dedicating just 30 minutes to real conversation each evening. Also making proactive short phone calls to her during travel time instead of just listening to the radio. At work, setting strict end times for meetings and actively blocking out time in his calendar for specific important projects.
What were his results?
He reported finding he was praying more by integrating it into daily routines like showering or mowing the lawn. He made more intentional calls to his wife. He saw a big difference in meeting efficiency at work without diluting the quality. And significantly, he finally found time to read books again by consciously shifting away from watching TV or checking emails late at night. Again, relatively small shifts in habit leading to noticeable improvements in areas he valued.
Small shifts, big impact. One more.
Let's take Andrew Riley. He was a single father of 3 young boys, running his own web company from home. He described feeling constantly stressed, always working on at least 2 things at once, which led to frequent interruptions from his children and frustration for everyone. The suggestions for Andrew focused on creating distinct, concentrated blocks of quiet work time, perhaps utilizing after-school programs for a couple of hours, or simply asking the children to play quietly in their rooms during specific afternoon periods, and then, crucially, completely shutting down all work devices for dedicated, focused, undistracted time with his kids in the evenings or on weekends.
Separating work and family time more clearly.
Exactly. The results. By intentionally not multitasking during his dedicated family time, he reported experiencing significantly less stress himself and enjoying much more high-quality, positive interactions with his sons. It proved that focused, even if shorter blocks of time, can be far more effective and rewarding than longer periods where attention is constantly divided and blurred.
Focus is powerful. These examples really bring it home.
They do. And they also underscore that no one's schedule remains perfectly typical or optimized from one week to the next. Life happens. Managing your 168 hours is an ongoing project. It requires continuous evaluation, adaptation, and that recurring theme of intentionality. The goal isn't to achieve some mythical state of perfect, rigid control, but rather to strive for continuous improvement and ever closer alignment between how you spend your time and what you truly value. It's about being flexible and responsive to life's inevitable shifting demands, while still holding firm to your core priorities.
That's a really important perspective. It's a dynamic process, not a static solution. I think perhaps the biggest takeaway from all of this for any professional listening, any parent, really any individual seeking more fulfillment from their days, is the empowering message that you truly do have more time than you probably think. And the power to align your 168 hours with your deepest values, your most important goals, your biggest aspirations, that power lies firmly within your grasp. It's a profound and hopefully motivating realization.
It can be truly liberating once you grasp it.
So, we've explored the surprising reality of your 168 hours and hopefully provided a robust framework and practical strategies for harnessing them towards a life of genuine intentional living. This deep dive has aimed to offer a different lens for viewing your week not as a fixed burden to be endured, but as a rich canvas full of potential for achieving a life that truly reflects your priorities.
Indeed. And perhaps a final provocative thought for you, our listener, to carry forward and reflect upon this week. If you were to approach your next 168 hours as a completely blank slate, armed with this newfound clarity, what would be the single most impactful core competency you would commit to dedicating significantly more time and energy towards? And conversely, what single non-core activity that currently drains your time or energy would you ruthlessly eliminate, minimize, or outsource starting today?
A brilliant challenge to leave us with. Thank you so much for guiding us through this truly fascinating and incredibly actionable exploration of time and intentionality. Your insights have been absolutely invaluable.
It's been my pleasure. It's a topic I'm passionate about.
If you found this deep dive valuable, please do consider rating and sharing our show with colleagues or friends who might also benefit. Your support helps more people discover how to unlock the potential within their own 168 hours and truly live a life by design. Until next time.